You may be surprised, people in this world are getting organized. You might
Some of you do not. My name is Sue Madden, and I'm with a group called A2D2, Ann Arbor Indivisible for Democracy. There's a lot of people today. Dirk doing the sound, somebody taking pictures. We got a lot of people helped with this, but Leah Gillen and Sarah Holmes from A2D2 were huge. The Western Washtenaw Dems is a caucus of the Washtenaw Democratic Party. They do great work. And Sandy Ackerman, our friend over here, was helping us with signs. And Sandy, don't miss her Friday. She does a bridge takeover over at the Stone School pedestrian bridge. So much fun. There's music, nice people, and every week they have a different sign, which is so fun. So anyway, thanks to Sandy. And then I want to say thanks Sherry Mason from Huron Valley Indivisible in Milford, because she mentored us, and she's awesome. And if I forgot anybody, I apologize. Thank you to the members of the press who have joined us today. We appreciate your willingness to tell these stories and about what's happening in Lansing and Washington and how it's affecting everyday people in the community and around the country. So it does not matter what you look like, where you come from, what your zip code is. We all have been or will be impacted by the chaos created by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and the MAGA-controlled Congress. We have seen Musk and his minions use their chainsaws to cut out so-called fraud and waste. They are trying to convince us that these cuts are a good thing, but Americans are onto them. We know that good government is what we depend on daily to make our lives better and safer. We all have different reasons for being here. But the bottom line is this. You care enough to be here to fight this fight. You know that it is a necessary fight because lives are at stake. Yeah. You care about the sick, the elderly, the children who rely on Medicaid and SNAP food programs for survival. And you know that they are better off when they have Medicaid. We are better off when they have Medicaid. You know that the worsening climate crisis is harming public health, which increases the demands on our public health system and increases the need for Medicaid. For a second there, I felt like I sounded like Debbie Dingle. What do you think? Because she's here, she's there, she's every flipping where. Okay. You are here because Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and his MAGA followers like Tim Walberg over on the west of us, Tom Barrett in the north, and Michigan House Rep Kathy Schmaltz, who represents Chelsea, are all okay with the federal government and state budget cutting trillions of dollars to give billionaires tax cuts. What did we say? We said, hell no. Right? So, as you know, the Congressional GOP passed a budget proposal that will potentially kick at least 21 million people off Medicaid, food assistance, housing, and other life-saving programs to fund tax breaks. Then, the Michigan House GOP passed a 2026 budget framework with cuts to Medicaid that they plan to turn into a final budget bill. They were hoping that you were distracted and that you weren't paying attention. But guess what happened? You said no. Representatives, you guys flooded representatives' phone lines and town halls. You said we're paying attention and we're not going to be silent. Hands off our Medicaid. Hands off Medicaid. Hands off Medicaid. Hands off Medicaid. Yeah. Hands off Medicaid. Because of your pressure, last Wednesday, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, dropped the most aggressive options the GOP was considering to cut Medicaid because he did not have enough votes, and it's because of your pressure. The fight is not over, but if anybody doubted the effectiveness of your work, Speaker Johnson's retreat should dispel these doubts.
Yay. Yeah. Pushing back works.
Yeah, pushing back works, like she said. Okay, so today you will hear why this fight is so important. We will hear from our advocate and fighter for public health, Representative Carrie Reingans. You will hear from an ER physician, healthcare leader, and defender of Medicaid, Dr. Anthony Sue. And you will hear from two brave friends with personal stories about Medicaid. Okay, so let me introduce Carrie Reingans, in case you don't know her, from the 47th District. She is a public health champion. She has a master's degree in public health and social work, so she is uniquely qualified to speak about the need for robust Medicaid funding. In addition, Representative Reingans has introduced a bill called MyCare to create a universal health care plan that will provide comprehensive, high-quality coverage to every Michigander without deductibles, without co-insurance, without copay, without BS, without caps. Please welcome Representative Reingans.
I was told I have to get close to this mic, Dirk. Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am State Rep Carrie Reingans. I represent the 47th House District here in Michigan, which is just a little bit to the east and to the south of here. We're actually in my colleague Kathy Schmaltz's district. She does have another engagement today. I talked to her last week about this event. But we do have a Republican Central staffer, Rachel, is here, who can answer questions for folks if you have questions about getting in touch with Rep. Schmaltz. In my time of knowing her, she is a person who cares a lot about vulnerable people. So I've been working really hard to try to partner with her to approach our mutual congressman in the Jackson portion of our districts, Tim Walberg. So Tim Walberg, our congressman in the Jackson portion, he tends to listen to people with an R behind their name, not a D. So Kathy has a power I don't have. She has that R behind her name, and she has stated multiple times that she cares about vulnerable people. So I've been working really hard with her to try to get her to work with Tim Walberg and push back and see if we can get him to vote no on these atrocious Medicaid cuts. So stay tuned. I haven't seen her make any public statements or posts online or anything about opposing these cuts. And in fact, the one action I have seen from Rep. Schmaltz is to vote yes on a budget earlier this year that actually put $0 in Michigan's Department of Health and Human Services. So I voted no on that. I was pretty disappointed that it passed the House, but that budget also cut 92% from our entire state government and 25% from our education budget. And so I am just stating facts here today about who voted for what and who has said and done what. So why do we care about Medicaid? Even if you don't have Medicaid, Medicaid affects you. So zooming out here, this is a health insurance program for people with lower incomes. And in Michigan, it covers about 2.5 million of our 10 million Michiganders. That's a big chunk of our population. And our state budget has, the biggest single item in our state budget is actually Medicaid, our expenses on Medicaid. And about 70% of that part of our state budget comes from the federal government. There are a lot of proposals on the table in Washington, D.C. about ways to change how Medicaid works. And the budget resolution that has passed multiple times now in the U.S. House of Representatives is demanding an $880 billion cut over 10 years in the budget of the Energy and Commerce Committee, which our Congresswoman here in Washtenaw County, Debbie Dingell, she's a member of that. And there is no way to make that level of cuts without cutting Medicaid and cutting the number of people who are covered, implementing hurdles and roadblocks for people to try to sign up and maintain coverage in Medicaid. So Debbie Dingell, our Congresswoman, is screaming from the rooftops, sounding the alarm. She's been talking about this along with the governor for weeks and weeks, months and months, ever since the first budget resolution was passed at the federal level. And we've been screaming it from the rooftops here in Washtenaw and Jackson County. This is going to be bad. Now, there will be cuts of some level. We don't know how much because the pushing back that you're doing has been working. I don't think, yes, give yourself a hand. I don't think we can hope for zero cuts. I don't think we can push back all the way and have no cuts. There will be cuts. to Medicaid. The problem is we don't know what type of cuts. Will it be that we're changing how much the federal government puts in versus how much we put in as a state? Are we going to be just throwing up roadblocks for people to prove that they're working, even though the majority of Michigan Medicaid beneficiaries are already working, and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to create those roadblocks, which is not an efficient use of money. So there are some proposals that are on the table that are more widely accepted in Washington, D.C. So we know that we will have fewer Medicaid dollars this coming budget than we did in the past. So I have been trying to fight against this. We know that 3 out of 5 seniors in nursing homes in Michigan are covered by Medicaid. They can only afford to live there after they have spent all their life savings in order to be poor enough to qualify for Medicaid to cover for their nursing home care. Based on the nursing homes I've talked to and some analysis that I've heard through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, nursing homes can last not even quite a week without Medicaid. So I don't know where those 60% of seniors are going to go if they have their nursing home shut down. But that affects the 40% who are not on Medicaid, right? And that affects all of us. Hospitals have the same problem, especially in rural areas in Michigan. There's estimates from Hillsdale Hospital, which runs a rural health communications platform. They estimate that at least 20 hospitals will close in Michigan in the first year. 20 hospitals, mostly in rural areas. So this is really bad, and it affects anybody who lives in that area, not just people on Medicaid. So this is why we need to care about the attacks on Medicaid and our healthcare. And you're probably wondering, why is all of this happening? Why are we trying to kick seniors out of nursing homes and close rural hospitals? I mean, the president just got a golden jet, but his billionaire buddies, they want another jet too. They got to keep up. And they got to have another yacht. I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg's 10th yacht or something. If we just take all the healthcare money and kick people out, we can give that money to our billionaire buddies. That's why we're doing this. This is why we're doing this. I don't know who needs another yacht or a space rocket or a golden jet, but it ain't regular people like us. And so this is why we need to be pushing back constantly against these atrocious Medicaid cuts. See if we can get Tim Walberg to vote no. See if we can get Tom Barrett to vote no. See if we can get John James. I think he's trying to run for governor, but if he votes to destroy our state budget, I mean that seems like a dumb move, in my opinion. So these are some of the things that we need to know about. Thank you so much for being here and pushing back. The pushing back has been working. These proposals have been walked back. There's creative math that could go into this to see maybe the cuts won't go into effect until 2027 after the midterms, just so we can avoid the consequences of our terrible actions at the federal level. But we are opposed. We're pushing as hard as we can to keep getting all Michiganders to speak out. This is a bipartisan issue. A rural hospital is not just going to close the Democratic wing, because that doesn't exist, right? It's going to close the whole hospital. And in those areas of our state, it is mostly Republican voters. So we need to make sure we take care of our neighbors and fight these cuts the way you're doing. And you will hear more from people who are going to be directly affected by this in a way that I'm not. Thank you, taxpayers, for paying for my health coverage. But if my hospital closes, that affects me too. So I think it's really important for us to continue to push back, make sure that our rural hospitals, rural health centers, our nursing homes can stay open and keep serving the Michiganders who rely on them. So thank you for being here. Keep speaking up and do not give up. We still need to keep fighting this every day.
Thank you, Carrie. Representative Rankin. All right, now I want to introduce you to Dr. Anthony Sue. Some people call him Tony. He is a dedicated emergency physician, healthcare leader with decades of frontline experience at Trinity Health and top academic centers. He has saved countless lives, and today he stands with us defending Medicaid as an essential lifeline to our communities, even as budget cuts and tax cut schemes threaten vital care. Please welcome Dr. Sue.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Sue, Tony for my friends and for you. I have worked in many emergency departments around the state and country for 20 years. Emergency physicians captain the front line of the healthcare system. By both oath and law, we are committed to providing life-saving care to anyone, regardless of their insurance status or ability to pay. However, this vital safety net is at serious risk. Look, emergency care is under pressure. EDs are increasingly overwhelmed while operational and financial resources continue to shrink. Payments for ED visits from commercial insurers like Medicare and Medicare and now Medicaid are rapidly declining, making it harder to maintain access and quality. People like me, emergency physicians, are being asked to do more with less every single day. The proposed sweeping changes that would lead to millions of people losing Medicaid coverage would be devastating for our already overburdened emergency departments and will accelerate closures of rural hospitals where access is already fragile. So this is what's at stake. Without urgent policy action, millions of Americans will face longer wait times, reduced access, and deteriorating care quality. The proposed Medicaid changes threaten to flood emergency departments with uninsured patients, many with nowhere else to turn. If Medicaid doesn't grow, waiting times will continue to grow since we don't turn anyone away. Federal and state financial support are both needed to provide the care you and your family deserve. So now we know Medicaid is essential. Who doesn't love healthy babies? Medicaid is a combined federal-state program that covers 45% of all Michigan births and 50% in rural areas. Cuts would leave mothers and babies relying solely on the ER when we're already super busy. Medicaid supports more than half of nursing homes. Representative Ryan Gatz talked about that. Reductions would worsen workforce shortages and drive up the costs of care. Medicaid pays for 40% of adult dental emergencies and 70% of pediatric dental emergencies. Loss of access would make care more expensive, delayed, and less effective for them. So this is what we need. Please ask Congress to enact reforms that bring predictability and stability to Medicare and Medicaid. Support efforts to combat fraud and waste, but not at the cost of physician access and patient care. Help preserve the emergency care system that you and your family may one day rely on. My ask, email your House Representative, Kathy Schmaltz, and Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. Show up at their coffee hours and town halls. Together, we can protect the safety net. Medicaid and Medicare is efficient care, and it needs more support, not less.
Medicaid matters. Medicaid matters.
Wow, it's great to see so many folks out today, and I just know that everyone is here to stand up to the tyrants in Washington who are trying to take Medicaid away from our neighbors and our friends, and we can't let them do it. No. I'm Sarah Holmes from Ann Arbor Indivisible for Democracy, and I have the privilege today of introducing two very generous people who have offered to tell their personal stories about how their lives have been impacted by Medicaid. And we're very grateful to them. And these stories aren't just their stories, they reflect the stories of people throughout our country, millions of people whose lives will be impacted, who will suffer from the loss of Medicaid services, and many of them are right here in Washtenaw County, right here in Chelsea. So these are our friends and neighbors who we want to protect. Please join me in welcoming our first storyteller. That's Jason Arbor, and Jason will tell us about his own story related to Medicaid.
Good evening. I'm Jason Arbor, and I'm from Ypsilanti. And 6 years ago, I was laid off. It was my first time. I was reading in the news last week that Michigan jobless claims for the week ending in May 3rd are now up 130%. And when I read that, I started having some flashbacks of all of the anxiety that I felt during my layoff. I was 47 years old and had been working at that employer for 22 years. So this was a bit of a shock to the system, and I felt that my best option was to change careers and go back to school, although I still needed to figure that out. When I was called into my termination meeting, I was basically told that I could opt into COBRA or look at healthcare.gov, which I did. And healthcare.gov was more affordable, so I went with that. And then I had 8 weeks of severance pay and was eligible for unemployment, which was only a fraction of what I was earning at that company. So I just kind of picked up the pieces and moved on and went back to school. And I have a music degree, so that's not very marketable. I think I had done good work at that company for a long time and had an interview with a similar company in the same industry, but it just seemed like it was time to move on. Things had changed. And I needed to look 15 to 20 years ahead. And I had concerns about ageism and technology changes and things like that. So back to school seemed like the best option. So since I wasn't quite sure what to do, I went back to Washtenaw Community College and took classes in mathematics and computer information systems. And that turned out to be really good. And the cost of Obamacare was very affordable under the circumstances. But for 2020, as I was looking to renew my plan, it looked like the cost of my current plan would basically double for 2020. But because I was in school and because I was only working a part-time job now for low pay, I was now eligible for Medicaid, which was great. I do have medical needs. I'm asthmatic, I have allergies, I need regular immunotherapy and prescription drugs, which can be expensive, and Medicaid covered all of that. So moving forward, in 2021, I landed an internship in the IT department at the Washtenaw Intermediate School District. And we have all of these signs at Washtenaw Community College all over campus. I don't know if any of you have been there, seen them, but they're basically profiles of former students with their tagline that I think the college is very proud of, but some of us make fun of, which is, what do you call someone who went to WCC employed? And after a few semesters, I got an internship, and it was like, wow, it's true. And so through hard work and study, I was able to get an internship, and that eventually led to a full-time job with benefits. It was great. I had healthcare and through Blue Care Network, and I was engineering a career change with some success, but unfortunately, it didn't last long. While on the job, installing some new equipment, I had a fall and broke my leg quite bad. And I was rushed by ambulance to Trinity Health. And after looking at the x-rays, the staff there told me that my life had changed and that I would be spending the next year working on my recovery. So that's quite a shock and a bad turn of events. So I spent 2 weeks at Trinity Health. I had 2 surgeries. I had basically fractured my tibia. And then I was sent to another facility for 4 more weeks of inpatient rehab. So 6 weeks of hospitalization. 3 weeks after my accident, the HR supervisor from my employer notified me by email that I was now being moved over to workers' comp, and that the day after my accident, my employer-based health insurance was now terminated. Workers' comp will only cover the costs directly related to your injury. Someone from COBRA will soon be reaching out to you. Now, try to imagine being confined to a bed. You can't do anything without ringing for a nurse. You can't go to the bathroom. If you want a glass of water, anything. They won't let you move. They won't let you out of bed. And I have someone from my employer canceling my health care. I have someone from the workers' comp insurance company trying to limit how much they're going to pay out. And the starting point for that is about 60% of my wages, which weren't very high to begin with. Keep in mind, I'm engineering a career change and I have to start over. I'm starting from the bottom. So any way they can limit the costs, they're gonna try to do that. Did you do any part-time work? Well, yeah, I have a part-time, I teach music privately part-time because my full-time pay isn't enough. Well, we have to factor that into how much we're gonna pay you, and we'll deduct that. So COBRA comes along and the rates are very high, and then it becomes a situation where, well, how does that factor in to the payment now? Well, we need to hear back from the HR department at your employer, and they're not responding to our phone calls or to our emails. And you're trying to get 3 people to talk to each other to get the kind of support and care that you need to get through this crisis. And it's just not happening. And then it occurred to me, am I still on Medicaid? I never canceled it. So I still had the contact info for my caseworker, and I called him up and he answered like on the first or second ring. And I told him my situation. And I said, you know, I feel bad because I feel like now that I had a full-time job in healthcare, I was supposed to cancel Medicaid, and I guess I forgot. He said, no, you don't cancel because it's a new job. We don't know how much money you're gonna make by the end of the year. We don't know if it's gonna last. You stay on Medicaid. And yes, you are indeed covered. As far as your situation now, you will get a new evaluation for the next year, and you just fill that out, and you'll have a determination on whether you're going to continue to have coverage. And that happened, and I filled it out, and I was covered, and it was great. 1 or 2 rings, great service. He was very kind and very supportive, and he said, no, the way that this works, you stay on Medicaid until the next evaluation. And looking at your situation, that's going to take you another year to learn how to walk again. You're probably going to remain on it. And then a few months later, the Canadian wildfires, the smoke from that started to come to southeastern Michigan. And as I mentioned, I'm asthmatic. And like a lot of other people with my condition, I needed more medical attention because of the wildfires. I needed Symbicort, more prescriptions, more therapy. All of it was covered. And soon after that, I got a full-time job at Washtenaw Community College, full-time benefits. Everything is back on track. But the lesson here is that somebody who works hard and is trying their best can end up in a crisis and depend on that safety net. And we should keep it, we should expand it, we should make it better. We should not cut it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. That was quite a story, and certainly proves our point that we can't lose Medicaid. Our second speaker today is Ellen Stone, and please join me in welcoming Ellen.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Stone, and I spent my career as an Ann Arbor special education teacher, helping students with learning differences access the kind of education they needed to succeed. Over the years, many of my students relied on Medicaid to meet their educational needs, and students like mine desperately need our support in these divisive political times. But I think it was my mother's story that led me to my life's work. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today is the day after Mother's Day. I want to introduce you to my mother, who died 3 years ago at age 90, and who relied on Medicaid throughout half of her adult life, because I know her story best. My mother was an all-American girl in the 1940s and 50s, a cheerleader, accomplished tap dancer, and top student at Revere High School in Boston. She was extremely proud of her bachelor's degree in elementary education from Salem University. My mother taught in public schools in California, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania before her breakdown, after birthing my two sisters, my brother, and me. Her medical care in the 1960s offered what was available at the time, but it did not meet her needs. She struggled with severe depression and at times psychosis, which resulted in her being unable to teach. Her diagnosis was initially manic depression, later termed bipolar illness. I knew my mother as a vivacious, fun-loving, and extremely hardworking parent who helped my father grow and preserve all our food, care for 4 children, and manage a teaching career outside our home. She was stylish and creative, a wonderful cook, and a devoted mother. All of this changed after her breakdown, which she later described as a deep, dark hole she could not climb out of. She spent many months and years in bed and could not resume the life she knew. Families bear the brunt of mental illness, losing someone you love and rely on. I started my life as a caretaker at age 10, along with my older sister who was 11, continuing until I left home to attend college. My mother also left our home after her divorce, moved back to Boston, and attempted to live on her own while accessing mental health support in Massachusetts. She worked in offices as a switchboard operator and eventually cleaning hospital and motel rooms until she could not work and care for herself simultaneously. She was in and out of the hospital in those years and lived in mental health treatment halfway houses until she secured subsidized housing in a senior living apartment. She eventually needed dialysis when her kidneys failed due to years of using lithium. Medicaid allowed my mother to access housing as well as critical medical care when she was no longer able to work. This basically kept my mother alive. I've written 2 books of poetry featuring my mother and my life. Here is survival instructions. You would think it was the right amount of milligrams, the correct tincture, how the chemicals became compound and interacted with her blood, clear markers that indicated Tegretol or Zyprexa. In the early days, lithium before it poisoned her. Now they'd say it might be grit, the easy way she made it through the years, or not that it was easy, just that she was strong enough to keep her wits together, fought to stay out of the hospital, along with ignoring voices that told her to walk 40 miles or move out of her place without a plan. It was chalked up to some therapy, luck, eventual peace with taking meds prescribed, not killing herself, keeping her family, God willing. Before the pandemic, my mother was enjoying the last 2 decades of her life as a grandmother, daughter, an active community member in her senior apartment complex in Ann Arbor, where she moved in her early 70s. She was loved by everyone she met. Mom managed to be both forthright, but also patient and persistent and kind. I believe my mother was the strongest person I've known in my lifetime. No matter what health issues she faced, she handled it with grace and composure. She never felt sorry for herself, and she never blamed anyone. I bring my mother's story to you in Mental Health Awareness Month to help us understand people who are mentally ill. They are all of us. Our children, our parents, our grandparents, our neighbors. They deserve the same care as any other medical patient. My mother was lucky to have a family to help her navigate as she moved to a new state, Michigan, in her 70s, and found subsidized housing and a top-notch medical team, including a psychiatrist and social worker to help her manage and thrive. She felt she had a new lease on life after a kidney transplant at the University of Michigan in her early 70s. None of this would have been possible without Medicaid. In the Jewish faith, there's a concept, tikkun olam, or repairing the world. My faith teaches me that it is not only my responsibility to care for myself and my family, but also to care for all people in our society. I believe that government has that same responsibility, and I see Medicaid under that umbrella. I am here today to speak up for the vulnerable among us, people struggling with mental health concerns who are not going to be able to speak up for themselves. It is our responsibility, our duty to care for those who struggle to care for themselves. It is our government's job to ensure that Medicaid is available for people like my mother who deserve all the assistance she received. As John F. Kennedy said in 1962, one true measure of a nation is its success in fulfilling the promise of a better life for each of its members. Let this be the measure of our nation. Today, may our federal government find its way back to understanding our responsibility to care for all members of our society. May we fight on until this is established once again. Thank you for your time and your concern.
Okay, can we really thank our brave, brave storytellers? Oh my God. Okay, I gotta get it together here. All right, I want to thank our storytellers. I want to thank Dr. Sue for his work and advocacy. I didn't mention that Dr. Sue is with a group called Committee to Protect Healthcare, run by Rob Davidson. They're a great group to watch. And thank you to our reps for always having our back. Thank you, Carrie Reingans. Debbie Dingle was going to come, but she had to go to Washington to vote on some stuff. Thank you for coming. Thanks for sticking together and not giving up on this fight. Please reach out to Western Washtenaw Dems, a caucus of the WCDP. Reach out to your reps. Reach out to Indivisible and find your community. Find ways to help protect each other, to push back on hate, bigotry, and cruelty. Right now, what we'd like to do is show our neighbors what democracy looks like, and we're going to march up around and around, just a little circle, and if you're able to, and carry your signs, and then if you want to go get ice cream, we can hang out. But thank you so much for caring and for coming.
All you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose. You fascists bound to lose.
I'm an activist in Chelsea, and when there's a protest in Chelsea, I'm sure going to come because I'm very concerned about the whole direction, everything, just like everybody else is, concerned about, not everybody, but the direction that things are going in. And I think bodies out here, I think standing on the street and having the cars pass and react to us, all of this means something.
My name is Jason Burbo, and I live in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I've been living in Washtenaw County since 1989. I'm a graduate of Ann Arbor Public Schools, have a degree from Wayne State, and I currently work at Washtenaw Community College. I'm here to talk about Medicaid and share my experience with it. It was a very good experience and very helpful for me in a difficult time. We're all very concerned right now that the federal government and the Trump administration specifically wants to make cuts to Medicaid so that they can renew Trump's 2017 tax cuts. And we think that this is a bad idea to give billionaires tax breaks and just leave people hanging and leave them in dire need. I think some people likely could die from decisions like this, closing nursing homes and things like that. So I'm here to talk about my very positive experience with Medicaid and try to persuade people to oppose this decision. I think that there are a lot of people who are not in favor of Medicaid, and you have the kind of Reaganism of welfare queens abusing it, and I'm here to be an example of somebody who is a hardworking American who ended up with a very bad situation, a very serious medical crisis and employment crisis, and was able to depend on Medicaid for my needs, medical needs, to help get me back on my feet in a difficult time so that I could get back to work and get back to my career. Rick Snyder expanded Medicaid when Obamacare went through. Steve Bannon is saying cutting Medicaid is a bad idea. I think that for a lot of people it means handouts to people who don't want to work. I think what it really is helping people who really need help, who are living in very difficult situations and need and depend on it, depend on Medicaid. So there are a lot of Trump voters who depend on Medicaid. Medicaid is a very good part of our safety net that helps all Americans and is very necessary to keep our society stable, healthy, and safe. You can be a hardworking American and have a full-time job with benefits and have a medical crisis and end up in the hospital and suddenly get cut off from your employer-based benefits and cut loose, and nobody cares about you, and all anybody wants is to bring their costs down, reduce payouts, reduce payments to you, and not help you. And I would like people to know that I don't feel that way. Those aren't my values. I think that we should help each other, and some people need help. They deserve the help, and we should keep Medicaid the way it is, expand it even. It doesn't help me if other people are suffering. You know, if we're all being lifted up, then that helps me more than people suffering.
There are so many things that are happening that are hurting both individuals. They're getting caught up in the crass way things are going, and individual lives are just being affected for a lifetime by some of these things. It's the basic underlying value between human beings. Our government is organized to serve the needs of our people because we respect them and we want them to have decent lives, ourselves and others.
I'm Ellen Stone. I am a retired public school educator from Ann Arbor. I'm a mom of 3 daughters. I'm a poet, and I'm an environmental justice advocate as well as a human rights advocate. If my mom were here today and had heard what I said, I actually think she'd be proud, because she was very quiet about her life. She didn't really talk a lot about what she went through. She just went through it. She did read one of my books and she said it was really sad. But what I said to her is that, yeah, Mom, your life was hard and it is sad. But also, so many people have read this book, my first book, and said, wow, you know, that happened to my grandmother. That was my aunt. That was me. And it helps to talk about it. And so I think she would feel like maybe her journey in her life helped somebody else, and that could probably mean a lot to her. If Medicaid didn't exist when my mother was first living on her own, I mean, she talked about this. She talked about people that were in the halfway houses with her if they wouldn't take their medication and they didn't comply, they ended up on the street. And she said she knew so many people who died, who just didn't make it because they didn't use the resources that were there. If the resources weren't there and you're not able to work and you're not able to take care of yourself, you're going to be on the margins of society. And we know what the margins of society look like. We don't have a great record of taking care of people in the margins of society. That's why we have a unhoused population. And people, they don't want to look at it. They don't want to deal with it. Or they want to know what the answers are. And the answers are things that we already have, like Medicaid. And funding healthcare and funding education. And we know what the answers are. We just don't want to put the money into it. I'm horrified. I'm horrified at the direction we're going, because it feels to me like what we're doing is, and Jimmy Carter talked about this before he died. He talked about one of the biggest problems in America was the gap between the well-to-do and the poor. And that gap is getting larger and larger and larger. And we have people in power who talk about money and wealth and influence and retribution as if that's the most important thing in life. And the most important thing in life is taking care of people and having people find a good, solid job and feeling like whatever they do for a passion matters, and that they have relationships with people and that they're connected to someone in their life. And I don't know, we seem to have like lost that somehow, or we're allowing people to govern us who don't believe in that, which just shocks me, because I think the everyday American believes in all those things. The everyday American believes in people working and following their passion and having relationships and being taken care of. But they're somehow been seduced into this other nonsense that is not leadership. So I'm aghast. I don't know. I'm worried about where we're headed. My dad is 91, and he, in some ways, he says he wished he'd died before this all happened, because he can't really see an end to it. And it's extremely upsetting to him, having lived through World War II, to see where we're headed. So I'm worried, which is why I'm on the phone all the time. That's why I've been to like 8 protests. That's why I can't shut up about what we're allowing to happen in our name. Like, this is not who we are. This is not the country we are. But we have allowed ourselves to be here, and we need to extract ourselves from the grifters at the top. I think you have to look at what is affecting you, what matters to you, and you have to say something about it. Like, you can't be quiet about it, and you don't have to do it. You don't have to protest. You can make a phone call. You can write a letter. I mean, actually, I think writing letters is pretty powerful, and it's a pretty quiet thing to do. You can write a letter to your hometown newspaper, which is what I do occasionally when I can't take it anymore. I just think you have to do something to say what you think. I mean, it can be having a conversation with your neighbor who thinks differently than you do. But this is not a time to be silent. This is a time to do. And it can be small, and it can be personal, one-to-one, or it can be big. It's whoever you are. But it's a time to come out of the woodwork and say, no, this is not my country. This is not what we are. As a retired special education teacher, I think a lot of it starts with children, and I think a lot of it starts with education. And if we want to change the world, we fund education, and we fund public education, and we believe in public education, and that's where we put our emphasis. Starts there. Starts in preschool, actually, before K-12. But you have to fund the vulnerable, and in my mind, children are vulnerable, and so are the aged. So those are the two ends we have to take care of. And then we have to speak up for what we believe in the middle.
I really appreciated hearing the personal stories of people for whom the Medicaid has made a life and death difference to them. They were hardworking people, trying their best, and yet conditions just pushed them down, and they really needed the Medicaid. And I appreciate that. And I hope more people think about that when they think about cutting Medicaid.
I'm Carol, and I'm with Voters Not Politicians. Voters Not Politicians is important because we speak for the voters. We want to hold politicians accountable. We want the voters to choose their politicians. We do not want politicians to choose their voters. We are here today because we are very concerned about 2 voter suppression petitions that may be coming out soon. Each of them has several things in common. They also have a few differences. Both summaries mention documentary evidence of citizenship. So if you see anything that says citizen or citizen voting, read the summary carefully to make sure that it's one that you do not sign. One of the things that is common to both of them is that they would require that people who submit an absentee ballot write ID on it so that they know for sure that the person who is sending in the ballot is the person who the ballot belongs to. So they would expect you to have on your envelope your driver's license number or the last 4 digits of your social security number, or a Michigan ID number if you don't have a driver's license, or other documents like that that are official government documents that would give identifying information. And one of the things is, if they don't put it on the outside, it would violate the secret ballots that we have now, because it has to be on the outside so that when the absentee board separates the ID on your envelope from your ballot, we don't know who voted whatever it is in that ballot. Many of the people who need the services of Medicaid have other resources that are compromised, so they may not have the ability to go to their local clerk or secretary of state in order to prove that citizenship. They proved the citizenship a long time ago when they were 16 and got their driver's license, and they proved it when they registered the first time in the state, but a lot of that proof was when they got their driver's license, because the Secretary of State already has that data from when you got your driver's license. And if you're immobile, it would be very difficult to go back and prove that again, to collect all those documents and get there. So it would severely compromise people who are on Medicaid who don't have resources to get to a Secretary of State's office. I would like you to go to our website, and that is vnp.vote, to find out more information about these 2 petitions. You can possibly volunteer with us or donate to us, but the main thing is find out about these 2 petitions. Please do not sign either petition that is about documentary evidence of citizenship, and also read those summaries carefully on all petitions, because there will be some good ones out there, and we would like you to use your own judgment for the other petitions. Don't sign these 2. Thank you.
I would hope that people who maybe have been a little hesitant to get out and make themselves visible might be willing to just take that step. It's really easy and it feels really good. You get mostly really good reactions, so it's a very positive experience. And then, wherever they are on the line of possible action, to move just a little bit farther along that line. And this is a democracy after all. So our opinions and our values matter.
I said all of you fascists bound to lose.